Today on Inside Utah Politics, the Affordable Care Act, the U.S. Supreme Court taking up arguments as the open enrollment period is in full swing. We're checking in with a local advocacy group for the very latest details. Plus, the race for the White House has been called for former Vice President Joe Biden, but President Trump continues to fight the results. Our panel debates the legal battle.
Time now for Inside Utah Politics.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Glenn Mills. It is time to go inside Utah politics. We begin today with the Affordable Care Act. Courtney Bullard with Utah Health Policy Project is here to dig into the very latest developments. Courtney, great to have you on the show. Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. So earlier in the week, the Supreme Court taking up the Affordable Care Act once again. First off, I know it gets really complicated and convoluted, but give us a basic idea of what this court case is all about.
Sure. So back in 2012, the Supreme Court heard a case on the ACA and decided in favor of the ACA that it was not coercive to, have people to tell people that they must enroll in health insurance, because there was also the choice of not enrolling and paying the tax penalty. And then in 2017, Congress took away that tax penalty, which we refer to as the individual mandate. And now there's a case back at the Supreme Court again this week saying that because that individual mandate is gone, but the requirement for health insurance exists, it's still coercive, or it's more coercive now.
So really it centers around the individual mandate still. Now
Exactly.
a lot of supporters took hope in what they heard in the questioning from both Chief Justice Roberts and Justice Kavanaugh. Your thoughts on what you heard from the hearing?
Yeah, going into this case, it was a weird argument that they're trying to make. And so it's really great to see Chief Justice Roberts and Justice Kavanaugh agreeing in that way, asking a lot of tough questions and basically saying that just because there might be this little individual mandate issue, that doesn't mean that the entire ACA is unconstitutional, which is super important for Utahns right now to know, because we are in open enrollment.
And we'll get to more on that in just a second, but I want to talk more about this individual mandate, because that is the crux of what this was all centered around as far as bringing prices down. The more people that are in the pool, the lower the prices become. So if that is overturned, how would that play out with the Affordable Care Act?
So the individual mandate was taken away in 2017 by Congress, and it hasn't been in effect for a couple open enrollments now. And we've actually seen numbers and participation in the ACA remain really positive and high, and people still choosing to purchase this insurance. And so we're really confident that if without the individual mandate and you make this severable, don't take the whole ACA away, but kind of solve this issue, the ACA is going to stand strong and continue to stand strong.
Okay, let's get into open enrollment. It's open right now. People have the opportunity to get on and take a look at what might work for them. Give us the most important details that Utahns need to know right now about open enrollment.
So open enrollment began November 1st. It goes until December 15th, and we are again seeing premiums stabilize and lower. There are $0 deductible options on the ACA right now, which is new. There are more plans, more competition than there have been in previous years. And we also have the new Medicaid expansion this year. And so if you have looked at a plan in previous years, you might have a better option this year. So we would really encourage everyone to get on healthcare.gov, call Take Care Utah, which is an enrollment assistance organization that can offer help in looking at these plans and see what's available to you.
In years past, I've been out to your office a number of times. People are coming in looking for help. Obviously, we have the coronavirus this year. So how has that shifted your approach in helping those that need it here in the state?
That's a really good question. So back in March, actually, we transitioned our enrollment assistance team to have a remote option, virtual options. And so we've been doing that now for several months. It's working very well. So we have, we're still offering services in different languages. We're still trying to meet people where they are in terms of what technology they have available, but you can go onto the website, takecareutah.org, make an appointment, and I'm sure we can figure out how to help you.
And how is that being received? Are you still seeing a lot of people reach out to you for help?
Yeah, absolutely. Utah actually throughout the pandemic has had one of the highest increases in Medicaid enrollment in the nation. We're second to Kentucky. So absolutely Utahns are leaning on programs available to them to get health insurance, and we are here assisting people, and we'll continue to do so.
Let's dig into that Medicaid expansion a little more, because there was a long time in our state, years, where we didn't have that option. It came into play recently. How has that been playing out in our state?
Medicaid expansion is literally a lifesaver that we got it done before coronavirus hit in Utah. Like I said, we've had one of the biggest increases in our Medicaid enrollment in the nation, and that just proves that as people are losing jobs, losing income, we have this new program that people can rely on, and that is incredibly important to make the connection between responding to COVID and having health insurance to do it.
One of the things I should have mentioned as we started with the lawsuit in front of the Supreme Court is Utah. Attorney General Sean Reyes, he's one of the Republican attorneys general who has got on board with this. But here in the state of Utah, we've seen pretty good numbers consistently from the beginning. Talk about historically how we've seen Utahns embrace the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah, so right now we have about a quarter of a million Utahns who use insurance that's made available because of the ACA. And so that was a huge point that we used when trying to talk to Attorney General Sean Reyes to pull out of this court case that will only negatively impact Utahns. Even the rhetoric around the court case now, we're not going to know what happens until next year, but it could potentially deter people from using what's available to them right now. And so Utahns need this. We have a lot of people who rely on it. Also, a vast majority of people in Utah who use the ACA plans receive premium tax credits, and so which helps them pay for the premiums and pay for the programs. And so this is not something that we should be thinking about taking away in the midst of a pandemic.
So we've seen this play out in Congress. Republicans tried to put up their replacement plan, repeal the ACA and replace. Didn't work out. But still, it's a big center of debate in Washington, and Republicans are insistent that we have a better plan. Your thoughts on what we hear from Republicans in Washington?
Yeah, I think I was more open to believing that years ago, and now that we have still not seen that plan and the ACA has continued to become a really important piece of the healthcare industry in general, I just think it's fairly unbelievable that there could be something that works better when the ACA has, you know, slashed uninsurance rates, and it provides essential benefits to people, and it protects people with pre-existing conditions, all of the things that it does. I'm very, very skeptical that there could be anything in place, and we just haven't seen it yet. So I think the best thing that we can do is just strengthen the program that we already have and make it better.
Real quick, we're going to see a change in administration. Joe Biden has been projected to be the next president. President Trump had an adversarial relationship with the ACA, so to speak, in that resources were taken away and whatnot. How do you expect things to play out with a change in administration? Yeah,
President Trump was supportive of is supportive of the Supreme Court case to take the ACA away, and also the attorneys general that are suing it's on party lines. It's a lot of Republican attorneys general that are doing this, and so I think that a Biden administration would create more stability within the ACA. I also think that you know, we've seen bad things happening in the Medicaid department with the Trump administration, and with the Biden administration, I think you're going to see less of that and more kind of supporting Medicaid expansion.
Okay, we will see how it plays out, Courtney. We appreciate your time. Very important information. Where can people get in contact with your organization?
You can go to utahhealthpolicyproject.org/bookings to make an appointment and get free enrollment assistance.
All right, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it today.
Thank you.
Still to come, a state of emergency brings new coronavirus mandates for the state. Our panel weighs in a little bit later. But first, President-elect Joe Biden rolls out his plan to address the COVID-19 pandemic. We'll get his strategy after the break. President-elect Joe Biden began releasing details about how he will tackle the COVID-19 pandemic. He says stopping the spread of the virus is the most important thing, and that will in turn revitalize the economy. Washington correspondent Alexander Limon has reaction from business groups.
President-elect Joe Biden says his national strategy for things like a rapid COVID testing program will save lives and the economy.
So that we can reopen our businesses safely and sustainably resume our lives, put this pandemic behind us.
40% of excess unemployment is in the travel industry.
Tori Emerson Barnes says the U.S. Travel Association has been calling for a federal testing strategy for months.
It can really help to give folks confidence to travel again in a more robust way. And so we absolutely would support these kinds of practices being implemented across the country.
The U.S. Chamber of Commerce also wants to see the federal government issue a standard set of COVID-19 guidelines to be used around the country,
so that on a local level, officials know what steps to take that can best minimize the spread of COVID and also minimize economic shutdowns.
Neil Bradley with the Chamber of Commerce says the national strategy needs to be science and data-driven.
We believe the key to getting the economy back to where we want it to be, which is where we were before we ever heard of COVID, is beating this virus and getting control of the spread.
In Washington, Alexandra Limon.
The fate of the Senate remains in flux after Democrats fell short of flipping several seats. Right now, the battle for power on Capitol Hill comes down to 2 Senate races in Georgia. Washington correspondent Raquel Martin has the very latest as Democrats and Republicans gear up for a historic fight.
Voters defied every predictor.
After a projected blue wave hit a red wall on Election Day, Senate Republicans are taking a victory lap.
Very thankful to have made it through another election season.
Candidates really matter, but what you're for also really matters.
Missouri Senator Roy Blunt and Iowa Senator Joni Ernst say voters rejected Democrats' agenda in favor of Republican policies.
They want more opportunity. They want more fairness. They want a strong economy.
Right now, both parties are projected to hold an equal 48 seats in the Senate, but the final 2 deciding the chamber's fate will come down to 2 Georgia runoffs.
The state of Georgia is changing.
Ohio Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown says he's confident Georgia will go blue after voters there gave Joe Biden a narrow victory.
They've not been happy with the Trump administration, clearly, from that vote. And I would assume they will vote for 2 senators that will take them in a different direction.
Brown says the seats are must-wins to ensure Biden can pass his agenda.
The president needs cooperation, not resistance and stonewalling.
But Florida Republican Senator Rick Scott, the new head of fundraising for Senate Republicans, says that's exactly why the GOP must win Georgia.
The socialism, reduced funding for the police, all these things are going to change the America that we all grew up in.
Georgians cast their votes again on January 5th. In Washington, Raquel Martin.
Democratic activist Stacey Abrams has reportedly already raised $6 million to help the Senate Democrat runoff candidates in Georgia. Still to come, a state of emergency brings new coronavirus mandates for the state. Our panel weighs in after the break.
You're watching Inside Utah Politics.
Time now to debate some of the big stories of the week with the Inside Utah Politics panel. This week we have former state senator Jim DeBackus and former House Speaker Greg Hughes. Gentlemen, great to have you back on the show. Thanks for being here.
Great to be here.
Let's get into the election. It's not just Tuesday night anymore. It just goes on and on and on, it seems. But let's get specifically into the race for the White House. President Trump continuing at this moment to say that the election was rigged, that he won. I want to get into these fraud claims. Jim, let's start with you. What do you make of them?
Look, it turns out President-elect Biden is going to win just as many electoral votes as Donald Trump. In Michigan, Biden is ahead by 150,000 votes, and the president is still there with a lawyer. Sean Reyes is traveling around the country. Look, it's over. And why does it matter to Utahns? It matters. We're getting overwhelming new cases of the virus. People are dying. We need leadership. We need the task force. We need the transition. Let's start the transition. And you know what? If Trump wins, oh well, you know, then we won't have a transition anymore. But we need every single one of these 71 days that are left And to play these games is irresponsible, and it sums up the whole selfishness of Donald Trump.
All right, you bring up if Trump wins. I want to dig more into that a little bit later, like how it would even be possible. But first, Greg, let's bring you in. These claims of fraud, you are an ardent Trump supporter.
I am.
What do you make when you see the president saying to everyone across the country, I won this election and it's being taken away from me?
So here's the challenge we have, and this was called by a lot of people before. I think Jim and I, we spoke about the worry that on either Biden or Trump winning on election night, people going to sleep on that election night, and then whatever that gap was in the coming days and weeks, that gap would be overcome and you'd have a different winner than you had on election night, and what the perception at least of a problem like that would create. Here's the problem with mail-in voting, and I'm just going to, and I think this is at the heart of what we're talking about. It does not have the chain of custody that going in person, providing your identification, having an election judge look at your name on the voter rolls, you signing the sheet, and then voting. Vote by mail inherently doesn't have those processes. What it does have is a way to look at your signature when you mail in your ballot, and there is a commitment to complete transparency. When transparency and those safeguards are broken down, or there are at least even accusations and images that we're seeing, the American people are seeing, of where that transparency and those safeguards are not being practiced, that is where the perception, minimally the perception of something wrong happening starts to be felt. And look, in this election, we were told this was going to be a blue wave, a landslide. There was no one who thought that they would ever support this president. At least 6 million more people supported him in 20 than in 16. Both candidates have received more votes by the American people than any candidate before them. And that's something to pay attention to. And if anyone thought that Trump had got his election by Russia interference, I think that's been proven wrong. They censored social media, even from Americans, for that. I think you have a divided nation. Perception on free and open elections have to be clear. And I do think that there are issues out there that need to be resolved to the satisfaction of the American people.
Okay, you make a good point there, and that was that there was no blue wave, and I want to get back to that a little bit later. But first, perception and proof. A big ally of the president, former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, also on ABC News nationally, says, look, if this is happening, show us the proof. So far, we haven't seen that. Jim?
One person sending a ballot for their dead mother. Another one, somebody saw somebody do this. That's not how we run the United States of America. Hillary Clinton was on the phone saying, you were elected. Talk about a bitter campaign. This is about dignity and respect for the process. And Donald Trump doesn't care about anything but himself. That's what he cares about. Are you telling me,
Jim,
are you telling me Donald Trump can win in any way, shape, or form to stop the transition?
Hillary Clinton complained that election was stolen from her for the entire 4 years of Trump's presidency.
She did call and concede, but still to this day, gentlemen, she still says he's an illegitimate president.
Yes, and what do we think this Russian investigation that just dogged this president for how long? That's not this. That was a subject that he colluded with the Russians to steal the election. It was all about the election results.
Greg, real quick, I do want to get your take on this, though.
Yeah.
What I said with Chris Christie, he says, show us the proof.
Yeah,
we haven't seen it at this point.
Glenn, that's what these court cases are about. They have to show to a judge where they believe wrongdoing has happened, where they think that this transparency or safeguards were illegally violated, not provided. And even if you get to that spot where you can show that the transparency is not there and the safeguards were ignored, you would still have a very hard time if those votes are blended with the general populace of votes, because you don't have signatures on the ballots themselves, just on the envelopes. Once they've been put into the general population of votes, I think it's hard to show what votes you would pull out, even if they followed the process wrong. I will say this, though. This election is so important that having the safeguards violated, having transparency not be provided, especially in states like Jim, on 15,000 votes in Wisconsin. If people were upset that Hillary lost Pennsylvania by 44,000 votes, you're looking at a number that would be smaller than that in Pennsylvania now.
Okay.
So let's just make sure we have a process that everyone can say, hey, we lost fair and square.
The process
we
is
won
fine.
fair and square.
I want to get to another point we just made, though, a little bit earlier, and that was there was no blue wave. In the very state of Wisconsin, which you bring up, Greg, Republicans took 5 of 8 congressional seats. We saw that across the country. They gained seats in the House. They've only lost 1 so far in the Senate. So if this was all about stealing the election, why did it stop short at the Senate and the House?
We have the worst cheaters in history.
Overall, outside of the presidency, you would have to call that a pretty good night for Republicans.
So what you've pointed out begs the question. There's an incredible amount, or we were told at least, of just we voted for the presidential race and we left the down ticket empty. How many of those ballots are there, and how much of an outlier are the number of votes where they're saying they just voted for Biden and the rest of the ticket was left empty? You're seeing things like that. And what I just want to say is this. It is a two-way street. You had the whole Russian investigation was about Russia's involvement.
What does the Russian investigation have to do with the election we just finished, Greg?
It was about them. It was about manipulating the outcomes of this election.
This man is illegitimate, and in a deranged night,
we have forgotten that the Russian
said, "I won the
collusion
election."
was about the election. The Russian collusion was about the election and them manipulating the outcome of the Hillary Clinton Donald Trump election.
This is the biggest whiner.
All I'm saying is this: you have got to let them run the legal course. If it is the case that there isn't a legal leg to stand on, the courts are not going to accept these lawsuits. Let that legal process go forward. And that's what you have to do. You did it for Gore in 2000. Do it now. Let the courts run their course.
Jim, do you have a problem with the courts taking it up and taking a look and the president taking advantage
it up? There have been 11 cases brought to judges, and 11 times it said no. My point is, have the head of the General Services Administration sign the documents, let Biden, his team, his coronavirus people begin the transition, because they're going to be taking charge. And every day that we lose now is going to be lives right here in Utah, while the president bitches and complains and moans the way he has done for 4 long years. He can't take responsibility.
In these narrowly won states, if you just flipped the script and said it was Trump that had won and Biden who had narrowly lost these battleground states, it would be a clarion call to allow for the irregularities that are being asserted to go through the courts and be determined once and for all if they can be.
Greg, what's the likelihood of any of them being reversed on either a recount or through the courts? It's not something we've seen historically.
And this is what's sad. I don't think the media, I don't think us sitting here, I don't think we're privy to the merit of those cases as a judge, and that process is going to be let that move forward. What I worry about is everyone's in such a great hurry. You know, they called, you had people calling at 11 p.m. on election night, Arizona, when to this day they're still counting, and it is less than 1% between Trump and Biden. My point is this: don't be in such a hurry. Don't condition the public through media narratives that he's already won, and then with the fate of maybe having to pull that back. Let these court cases run their course. If they're meritless, they get dismissed. We can move on.
Real quick, Jim, your final word on that.
Those mail-in ballots, we know they're nefarious and they're manipulated, and I expect Spencer Cox to resign his shot at being the governor. Give me a break.
Let me just say this.
This is all made up.
Let me just say this.
Donald Trump lost, and you just can't take it, Greg.
We learned just the late Joe Frazier voted. Okay, I'm going to draw a bright line on the side right now. I believe in ghosts, Jim, but I do not believe that ghosts have the right to vote. I think if you are dead, the ghosts have to stay out of our election, okay?
Show me a ghost.
And the reason why you know that...
Gentlemen, we have 1 minute left. I mean, they have each of you 30 seconds.
I just want to show him smiling.
30 seconds each. I want to get into these new state of emergency mandates in the state of Utah. Your take on them. 30 seconds each. Jim.
It's heavy-handed. Oh, you said Jim, but I just want to jump in. Let me just say, give Jim the last word. Here's what I'm going to say. The counsel, the encouragement, the good information driving good decisions of how we should be separated from one another, what we should be doing right now to curb the hospitalizations and emergency room visits, absolutely critical. I think in good information. Okay. To then come up and say we're going to give you fines and we're going to come after you criminally, we're going to do all these things, way too heavy-handed in the land of the free, home of the brave.
Greg, to give Jim the last word on that.
We tried. Herbert tried. Persuasion and whatever. We had 3,000 new cases, and it's a formula, and it's going to get worse. Are you kidding me? Not making mandatory masks is criminal in the state of Utah, and the politicians should be locked up.
They are mandatory across the state.
I know now, but we went how long?
All right,
we went
gentlemen,
until it was out of control.
That was an excellent conversation. I need to have you back on more often. Thanks for being here.
We'll do it.
We'll do it again.
Stay with us. We'll be right back with more Inside Utah Politics right after the break. We'll leave you now with a look at what's on the radar in the world of politics. County election results will be certified this Tuesday at Board of Canvassers meetings, and the general legislative session is coming up. Can you believe it? Opening day set for Tuesday, January 19th. Make sure to connect with me on social media. I'd like to know what you think of this show and other issues that are important to you. You can email me at InsideUtahPolitics@abc4.com. You can also follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Just log on and search Glenn Mills ABC4. Thanks so much for making us part of your day. We hope to see you again next week as we go inside Utah politics.